Hi there, it's Dr. Marcus Bussey here, beaming into you from Australia, University of the Sunshine Coast, where I'm the Deputy Director for the Sustainability Research Centre, and I'm also a Senior Lecturer in History and Futures. It's a delight to be here, really, to join you for the first IRODEO conference. And I love the theme of the conference as well, which we all need to pay attention to, which is to bridge horizons and integrate knowledge for regenerative futures. But before I share my thinking with you on imagination activism, I'd like to acknowledge your Dr. Arnel Mileshka, who's the college president, also the Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Elwarine Delavan, and Dr. Edwin Malata, who's the Vice President for Administration and Finance, critical roles. I'd also like to acknowledge my two on-the-ground colleagues, Dr. Vincent Flores and Dr. Novi Flores. I'd like to also acknowledge the co-host for this conference, which is the South Asian Regional Centre for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture, which is headed by Dr. Glenn Gregorio. Before I go any further, I'd like to share my screen with you and just give you a few images that sort of will signpost some aspects of what I'm going to talk about. You can tell I'm an image person. I've got the doors behind me here, which are photos that I've taken and put together over the years as I travel. I love doors. Each one seems to open into a new world, a new horizon. I'm a very visual person. My T-shirt says that. You know, I really think a lot in images. And this helps me, I guess, think about how to do imagination in a practical and applied sense. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Come on. And I'm going to jump over to here and click like that. Okay. So nice cover. On we go. First of all, I'm thinking about clocks, temporality, time. We deal with the cosmic clock from the Big Bang all the way through to the future. This is an image from Eric Chasson's thinking. Here we have another form of cosmic clock. This is from the 6th century BC. It's a Mesopotamian image of the world. It's possibly one of the first star maps from a complex civilization that we know of. Then, of course, we've got natural clocks, you know, beautiful natural clocks. This is from a rainforest just near where I live. These ones are just, we have them growing in our garden. Not that I took that photograph. It's too good, too good for me. This is a liquid clock. This was an illustration by Linnea Humble, who was a student of mine, is now a friend, and she collaborates with me creating fun images to express ideas. This goes with a poem that I wrote called It's Time. Here we have the way I visualize or understand and represent futures thinking to people. We have pasts, plural, presents, plural, and futures, plural. I will be talking, of course, about the role of the plural in being an imagination activist. For the moment, it's good enough to understand that our present is each present that we all inhabit, though we're alongside one another, either physically or, you know, asynchronously, like I am with you, that we inhabit a space that is co-created and co-shared. It's a space where we are doing social and communal things, but that each of us also brings into that space a unique temporality built from our own biographies, and experiences of culture. Where did we grow up? The kind of foods we ate, music, art, literature, but also the kind of concerns and pressures on us comes into the present, and we take those into the future. So that's that one. Here I'm having fun in Minecraft world. I do as much play as I can in different spaces. The Minecraft is a fun space, and it's something that I like to use in my teaching as well, believe it or not. Yes, I can teach with Minecraft. In fact, there's a whole Minecraft education platform that you can turn to if any of you are interested in such things. And finally, I would like to share this one with you, which is a rethinking. Imagination activists do things differently. okay? Futurists do things differently. They invert dominant assumptions. Michelangelo's great and famous and stunningly beautiful painting in the Sistine Chapel has been reinterpreted here by an Afro-Cuban artist who works in New York. Hermione is her first name. Second name has gone out of my head like that. I wasn't prepared to sort of Rossa, that's it, Hermione Rossa. So this is a beautiful one, and it's called the creation of God. In other words, rather than the creation of man in the old Michelangelo framing of it, and of course dominant Catholicism, dominant Western worldviews, Judeo-Christian worldviews, we have a certain myth or mythic trope. And here she's inverted it beautifully by feminizing it, collectivizing it, and also, of course, challenging the white European stereotype that we work with. I'm going to save the last slide, though, for later when I need to use it in the talk itself. So let me begin now with basically I've come up with a kind of thought sequence which it falls into parts. I want to begin at the beginning, which is a good place to start, they say. So I want to start this talk with the following proposition. How we imagine our future is key to how we approach the actions needed to realize it. Sounds straightforward, doesn't it? At one level it is, but looking more closely, we see a problem. Imagination is not a simple piece of open source software. It's a data processor that draws on images and ideas, assumptions, beliefs already in the cultural context available to the ones doing the imagining. That's you and me. Not only that, imagination is also like a muscle. It needs to be exercised to keep it in shape. We need to cultivate a deeply engaged imagination, one that is hungry for new sources of inspiration, the data in our culture, and yearning also for greater levels of freedom, for new horizons of possibility. Futures thinking picks up on the yearning that is key to imagination and provides it with a degree of direction and a mindset that we can reflect on. That we can reflect on how the forces of culture shape our aspirations and expectations. As social and cultural beings, we are wired for success, and this is an evolutionary principle. Yet success is always provisional and also not based around the individual, at an evolutionary level at least. Success is really associated with the collective, with the species. It's natural for a species to drive for success. Yet, at the level of each one of us, we also yearn for this success, which can be read as security, balanced with the ongoing quest for meaning. Herein is the tension found in the world at large. We want security, but we also yearn for expansion. So, what do? We create systems to generate a sense of security, and then we become prisoners of those systems. Aha! Yes, that's right. Then we break the systems as we need to change. Freedom and expansion come only to fall back. We fall back in terror in the face of uncertainty and insecurity again. This fact makes us an amazing and unpredictable species. If you are risk averse, it makes life terrifying. If you're risk tolerant, it makes life exciting. Time for a coffee. So back to the imagination. The risk averse can imagine the bad, yes. The risk tolerant can imagine the good. We need to navigate this paradox. In this, imagination becomes a form of activism, and futures thinking becomes a key element in helping us create futures worth living in for the risk averse and for the risk tolerant. For a start, the future always before us is a principle for action in the present. The future, however, is also all around us, as my folded snake image suggests. So it invites historical consciousness and a philosophical appreciation for the dilemmas of being human. In addition, the future is something we do together. It's a relational field. This calls forth an ecological awareness of our embeddedness in the natural world and also an ethical appreciation of humanity as a state of being and doing and relating. And on top of all that, the future requires a sensitivity to time itself. Those clocks I showed you, right? Various clocks are ticking away, and not all clocks are equal. In our modern and industrial world, the Western clock prevails. But there are biological clocks and geological clocks, ecological clocks, cultural clocks, and cosmic clocks, some of which I tried to capture in that short PowerPoint I shared with you. Each clock is rooted in an experience of reality quite different from the so-called modern, okay? The imagination, however, has been conditioned to the linear, the modernist clock. Yet when we introduce it to other dimensions of the future and other clocks, we suddenly encounter a totally different world. Reality starts to crumble, and imagination becomes a much-needed tool for navigating the uncertainties we encounter. So the point of this discussion is to highlight the fact that we interact with our futures. We co-create them along with everybody and everything else. And that if we activate our imagination with anticipatory dimensions, we can work towards a better future or better futures. This is where future studies comes in. It offers tools for thinking and imagining that sharpen our anticipatory capabilities. These tools are anchored in an appreciation that the future is collective and open. In fact, there are many futures, the plural, and these are all grounded in the past, immanent in the present, and fermenting in the futures we hold between us all. Futurists like to scan, deepen, time, invite, challenge, and transform as part of their anticipatory repertoires. We explore temporal horizons and identify features in our context that are signaling potential futures to come. We are suspicious of dominant narratives, but equally we understand that narratives seed alternative futures. So the tug of war is always present between a given reality, which is powerful with its powerful logics, and systems and alternatives that challenge what is reasonable and plausible and probable. Alternatives abound, though they may seem out of reach right now. We futurists all have our favorite tools. One way to describe what we do is as socio-temporal research, in which we work with people to inquire into how the futures are present or silenced in their communities. This calls upon our collective cultural gift of the future's senses. Memory, foresight, voice, optimism, and yearning are cultural senses that continually stir up and reconfigure our realities. An imagination activist is someone who actively develops these senses and inspires others in exploring alternatives that make a difference. This involves linking from the start action to imagination in forging better futures for all. Being an imagination activist is to be someone who explores the realities they inhabit. They use the future senses. They use memory to creatively work with their traditions as creative traditionalists. They test the futures before them through the deployment of their anticipatory imagination as foresight. In this, they hack their own cultures. In hacking, they are exerting their agency or their voice, as I call it. Voice is expressed through acts of resistance to power or gravity, or a given singular present. As they resist and find they can resist, this unleashes a shackled optimism. They start to believe in hopeful futures as a result. And beyond that, they start to actively construct futures that call to them, that they yearn for. Imagination activists are powerful sowers of alternatives in their communities and also in the mythic realities that feed the worldviews that forge community identity and purpose. So futurists are imagination activists. They are also enablers of imagination activism. They rock the boat. They do this through the use of tools that act as solvent on business as usual mindsets. And now I'm going to share with you for a moment that other image, okay? Hopefully you're following along quite happily with this one. Oh, which one is it? Ah, there it is. Bing. So here we are. I want to talk a little bit now about the futures triangle. Yeah, so as I'm saying here, take the deceptively simple futures triangle pictured here from my 2014 paper, Concepts and Effects. This tool helps people understand the constructed nature of their present realities. So one vertice represents the weight of the past. As I noted earlier, the past is a powerful source of meaning and practices. When participants in a futures workshop start to reflect on the past, they come to see it as a very mixed bag. They also begin to identify how it is at work in the present and how it has colonized the futures they imagine. Engaging with the weight of the past is a critical activity in that it enables us to become a little less controlled by it in the present. Through it, we can see elements at work that we have disowned, such as colonialism, imperialism, patriarchy. Furthermore, we also find in it elements that may have been suppressed, that can aid us in moving into healthier, brighter futures. Another vertex represents the push of the present. Working with people in a futures workshop, they identify the key issues driving action. They also identify aspects of the present that may be harbingers of things to come. These weak signals may actually prove important in crafting our preferred futures. Working with the push of the present helps people identify futures that have been sold to us as desirable and modern, but are in fact worn-out tools of control and domination. The final vertex, the one at the top, is the pull of the future. Here we find a bifurcation between futures we fear and futures we yearn for. Identifying both is important in a workshop setting, as this way we can see how each is playing out in our own imaginations and our collective imaginations too. Images of the future are powerful attractors. Realist futures tend to be constrained and risk-averse, as anything open, creative, and uncertain is deemed a risk. When we identify preferred futures, we begin this journey to constructing action steps to reaching these, okay? This process is what I think of as applied imagination, in which optimism and voice, that's the agency of individuals and communities, both have practical roles to play. I can stop sharing that now and move on. So, what do I want to emphasize here? I hope you're following along okay. I want to emphasize that we are all potentially imagination activists. Given the nature of global and local stresses we face today and will face well into the future, we need to craft better futures for our planet and our communities, and also for the broader life community that we share this planet with. We can free our imaginations from the conditioning that comes with culture through a simple flick of the switch. I see the futures triangle as such a switch, but I also see the kind of thinking in and with temporality and culture as presented here as the wiring that goes along with the switch. I love metaphors, as you can see, as they feed the imagination. Metaphors are the building blocks of imagination. Imagination activists play with them as they are all around us, just like the use of the term switch and wiring that I just mentioned. The astute listener to this talk will have picked up the metaphors I have deployed throughout the talk. To access metaphors, we need to cultivate a rich and playful engagement with culture and spirit. Listen to music, play with children, dance and move, read poetry and works that make you think, feel. Walk in wild spaces, experiment with things like ideas and cooking. Hold conversations with the sacred too, as the sacred is always ready to engage in conversation. Follow the yearning in your heart, as it is a link to the sacred, always an invitation to go deeper. So, to conclude, I want to be clear that about one thing. The imagination is not something simply fanciful and daydreaming. In the right hands, your hands, it can be a powerful survival tool that harnesses practical actions on behalf of future generations on this planet. It is a vehicle for self and planetary liberation. However, it can also be a cage used unreflectively. And that's the trick. We are called to draw on futures thinking as a unique constellation of concepts and tools to open up the imagination to new images of the future and to the creative activism required to realize the kind of futures we yearn for. Thank you.